G'day guys! Welcome to my review of Black Desert Online. My name's Yuko. This is a Korean MMORPG by Pearl Abyss and published by Daum Games. It's been out for about 2 years in Korea and has recently been brought to the West by Daum Games. Now, I'm going to give you a brief overview and then I'm going to go through a few of the gameplay elements, give you the pros and cons, and then just a quick summary. It's not going to be the longest video in the world because I will rant for 40 plus minutes if I get into it. So I'm going to go off my notes here, give you a quick summary, and let you see for yourself. So here we go. Here is a brief overview. So the Western version is actually quite different than the Korean version, including but not limited to buy to play versus Korea's free to play. Our version is less pay to win than Korea as well, and we actually have a lot less content than Korea overall. So basically that means that while the version we have right now, it's playable, it's fine, it's great, it's definitely has its shortcomings compared to the Korean version. So keep that in mind when you do play the game. So in terms of gameplay, I'll start with PvE combat because essentially most MMOs focus on this aspect of their game, so might as well bring it up first. This game has an action combat system, meaning you input your attacks in real time and you don't have a traditional sort of auto attack like your World of Warcraft and other games. In addition to action combat, you can actually chain together skills to animation cancel and deliver damage faster. You actually do this by pressing keys in certain combinations, similar to fighting games. So this is awesome, and basically my first pro, this is the best combat system of any RPG I've ever played. You can just rip right into it and it's just, oh, it's so good. Skill-based combat, so if you know your combos, you'll kill enemies faster and players faster, sort of in theory. But essentially the skill-based combat is what's the draw here, is that you learn your character as you play, you get better, you get faster at your combos, and you can feel yourself getting better. And you just think, wow, this would be so sick when I get into PvP. At least that's what. So as you go along, you allocate skill points while you level, and your abilities will actually change dramatically. And you can have huge power spikes to completely change how you play your class, which is really interesting because once you've gone for 30 levels doing, roughly the same thing, it's cool to get a new ability that just completely changes the way everything works, which does happen and is cool. So moving on to the cons, enemies have very basic combat abilities. You generally have ranged spellcasters and melee, and 90% of enemies do nothing except their basic attack. So this causes combat to get quite stale as you grind thousands of mobs. They're all just doing the same thing. So you kind of figure out your best strat and you end up doing the same thing over and over again. Some skills are actually completely redundant and are noob traps, meaning they look good on paper, but in practice they're either overshadowed by other skills or they're just impractical to use. And because enemies have very few attacks, the combat generally devolves into rounding up a huge pack of enemies and AoEing them down. Occasionally you'll get a health sponge, sort of elite mob, spawning in the packs, which helps to keep things a bit more interesting, but other than that, it becomes AoE simulator very, very fast. Look, moving on to PvP combat, I freely admit I didn't do a lot of PvP in Black Desert, mostly because it was mind-numbingly broken and bad, both in World PvP and the Red Battlefield, which is sort of the equivalent of Battlegrounds from WoW. The pros, it looks really cool when you watch videos of it on YouTube. That's about the only pro. Cons, it's extremely gear dependent PvP. You absolutely need the top gear that takes weeks of grinding mobs to afford, even if you buy it from the auction house. So if you're coming to this game to jump into the PvP, just stop. Just don't even do it. Just don't. Just don't. It's extremely laggy. Now, I'm not in the best position considering I'm Australian and play on the North American servers, but saying that, I've played many games competitively on NA servers, including League of Legends, World of Warcraft and more, and had lots of fun doing so. Fun being the word. I wasn't winning all the games, but it was still fun. But in this game, due to lag and the mechanics I'm about to mention, I could literally do nothing in PvP. And those mechanics are getting 100 to 0'd while stunned by super geared players, player speed, and terrible UI. Due to the fact that combat's so fast paced, everyone is literally porting all over the screen and they're extremely hard to hit. Combine this with the fact a player can teleport on top of you, stun you, and take you from 100% health to 0 in 3 seconds. It's not fun. In addition to this, you can't actually see how much damage you are dealing to people. There are no damage numbers, and there's a million tiny health bars on the screen, and in a PvP battlefield. So it's very hard to tell what skills are effective in PvP and which are useless, and if you're doing damage or all of that. It's very difficult to see. So that's the combat. In summary, extremely fun in PvE for a while, then becomes very repetitive due to overly simple enemy combatants and HP sponges. The PvP is literally unplayable for me due to lag, player character move speed, crowd control, and lack of combat information. I can't comment on high-end, high-geared PvP, but I still feel that I shouldn't really have to, because at the end of the day, it's not like you're restricted from doing PvE unless you have super good gear. You can jump right in, start killing enemies, and you're fine. But PvP, not a chance. You just can't go in there and have fun. I don't know why they don't scale PvP to everyone having the same level and damage, because I feel like that would make it a lot more fun. There's literally no reason not to, but except for the fact that they want to cater to the hardcores that want to sit there for 18 hours a day grinding gear out so they can stomp noobs in PvP. Anyway, moving on. So in most MMOs there are alternatives to combat, and Black Desert isn't an exception. So the pros and cons of the other activities in Black Desert include, there's some really cool systems to explore, such as hiring NPCs to craft and gather materials for you. There's a big fishing mini game, trading between towns for profit, farming, alchemy, cooking, and more. There's a great player housing system with tons of player-built furniture. Moving on to the cons. You literally cannot interact with other players beyond grinding mobs together and trading some consumables. And obviously chat. So, want to help each other build a wagon? You can't do that. You want to give your buddy all the excess iron you mined to help him make a sword? You can't do that. And the other thing I should mention is you can do, obviously, PvP together. That's probably the other thing. So very combat-focused player interaction, and that's just about it. So the economy is actually very broken in places. You can rarely make profit from crafted items because either A, the raw materials are worth more than the finished product, or B, the amount of time and effort it took you to craft the item is not proportionate to how much profit you can make from the item. So, to explain this, if you train a horse to rank 6, that might take you 60 hours of in-game time to do, which is obviously a lot of time. Now, the market might let you sell that horse for a maximum of 3 million silver, when in an unrestricted market, the horse would actually sell for upwards of 20 million silver. But due to the game design, you aren't allowed to sell it for 20 million silver. So basically no one sells their good horses, and no one sells good gear, and basically no one sells anything good. They only sell stuff that will make the good stuff for your character. And so all the stuff that's actually worth, decent money is the stuff that's sort of the material, the raw material for the finished product. So that's kind of where all the money is right now. And this actually goes across the board with the professions, meaning that it might take you 10 hours to craft a sword, but if you'd spent that 10 hours grinding mobs, you'd actually have made 10 times the silver. Simply because the game won't let you sell the sword for what it's really worth. And this makes crafting for profit pointless. I mean, you might be able to craft your armor for yourself once and save yourself a bit of money, but then you're basically done with it because you've lost money trying to sell the finished product. So there's literally no point. Now, that's not going to be the same for every profession. Some you'll make money, some you won't. Most items you won't, some items you will. But the real problem is, even if you're going to make money on those items that you do make money with, it's never going to be more money than you'll make grinding mobs or fishing. Because, number one, you've got energy, the energy system. You gain a resource called energy 1 point every 3 minutes, and whenever you do almost anything besides fishing or killing mobs, or PvP, you use energy. The only way to restore it is over time and some quests, which give you very small amounts of energy back. This punishes players who want to purely craft. They're forced to do something else until it has regenerated. And if you contrast this with the player who just mindlessly grinds mobs for 8 hours straight, he's not restricted whatsoever. The reasoning behind the system is supposedly to prevent inflation, but realistically the market's already flooded by the millions of silver people make from grinding mobs and AFK fishing and actually trading. So, in summary, a brief review of Black Desert. I will summarize with the following. The game is very fun for the first 100 to 200 hours of gameplay. The systems all feel very new and exciting and fresh, and you level up really quick and you get tons of new abilities fast. You can do whatever you want straight out of the gate, from farming, fishing, combat, and more. And that's what I did when I first started. I sort of dabbled in everything, and I thought it was really cool how there's so many systems. But the problem is, and this happens in quite a lot of games, is that as you go deeper, you see the restrictions and the barriers. So no player trading, fixed auction house pricing, many craftable items are made redundant very quickly. PvP is laggy and unbalanced, and extremely new player unfriendly. There's almost no in-game content except world bosses and the broken PvP, and that's in the Western version at the minute. If you decide to be a purely gatherer / crafter, as I tried to be initially, you realize it's extremely hard to make a profit on 90% of items, and the energy system will forever keep you frustrated that you can't keep mining if you want to, or skinning, or making potions, or refining materials to craft weapons, etc. Overall though, I would still actually recommend you pick up Black Desert Online, funnily enough. It's worth $30 for the first 100 hours of entertainment, for sure. And who knows, if you love grinding, you might keep playing it. But if you pick this up for PvP or endgame raiding or to play with friends or be a pure crafter, it's going to actually disappoint. 6.5 out of 10, Black Desert Online, Discipline Yuko Spaggiaconti, rip into it!